Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. And Dorothy, it's good for me to be back behind the microphone this week.
Yes, it is.
After Callie McIntyre's great show last week on food allergies.
Yes.
She was, she just turned 17. She comes in, she takes over the show.
Yes, she does.
I didn't even ask her for an outline. I didn't ask her for notes. She brought her guests. Mm-hmm. She had her program. She completely owned it.
Yes, she did.
And it was heartfelt, and it was, I remember you and I were sitting there together. I learned a lot last week.
So did I.
She is quite a young lady. When we first had her on the show last year, after she became Miss Moore County's Outstanding Teen, we had Peggy Taphorn on the show a couple of weeks later. Mm-hmm. And what a small world it is. And Peggy sat here, and you know how effervescent she is.
Yes. So
when I mentioned Callie's name, she just lit up, and she said, I love Callie. And I think Callie has done some work with Peggy. I'm not sure if it's through the Temple Theater or not, but it's a small world.
Yes, it is a small world.
Peggy is a big fan of Callie's, and she's en route back here from, I think, a trip to the West Coast. Huh. But we're going to talk a little bit directly and indirectly about the Temple Theater today without Peggy being here.
That's a surprise.
And you know how shy she is, right?
Yeah, I know. It's hard to get her to talk.
She can just hold court for an hour, and then you and I can just leave.
Pretty much.
But she has an event going on next week, which we're going to be talking about. The Temple Theater and Remax Real Estate Services up in Sanford are presenting an evening with Old Blue Eyes. And we're talking about Sinatra. But not specifically just Sinatra, but the genre of what Sinatra represented.
Right.
And we're going to be speaking today with Bill Stonehouse and the North Carolina Revelers Orchestra, which was founded and run by Henry Masson. And these two gentlemen have come in to join us today. The show is next Tuesday, just in a couple of days, May the 29th at 7:30 at the Temple Theater. And reserved seats are $20 and VIP tickets are $30. And during the course of the show today, we're going to be speaking with these two gentlemen. We're also going to be giving away a couple of VIP tickets for anyone listening. They can call Al Mangum at 910-315-3099 to pick up a couple of tickets for this event.
Sounds good.
Dorothy, how many times have we spoken in the last 8 or 9 years about this area, what it means to people, how it reminds them of the town they grew up in?
Let's see, how many weeks are in 4 years?
I know. And what a move towards nostalgia, and what a move towards preserving different eras of our music, things that make people remind them of either the towns they grew up in or the times they grew up in. Mm-hmm. And Frank Sinatra, a very iconic singer. And you know, what's so funny, Callie just turned 17 years old.
Yeah.
Her grandfather, who is a very strong mentor for Callie, they are both Sinatra fans. Mm-hmm. Callie's 17, and this young lady loves Sinatra.
Well,
and
what's not to love about Sinatra?
She's 17 years old.
So?
The Beatles would be old enough to be her grandparents, and she's talking about Sinatra. She's 17 years old. When I grew up as a kid, my dad was an amateur singer, and he was a big Sinatra fan, and he was a tenor, and he would tell me that I should listen to some of this music, and I, of course, would roll my eyes, as most sons would do with their dads,
yes.
And go, you're not cool, you don't know what you're talking about. And today, he's not with us anymore, but all those memories and all the things he told me and all the music that he liked, guess what I listened to? It's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Bill Stonehouse is here, and I'm privileged to meet you, and you are going to be performing Tuesday night.
I sure hope so.
I hope so too. Tell us a little bit about the event. What you do, what you're planning, what people are going to see.
You know, the event, you were just talking a little bit earlier about, your father being a singer and everything, and it was a pretty nice little anecdote is that, in his case, he started early on in life and then decided to kind of, it's time to hang it up a little bit.
He had kids.
With me, it's just the opposite.
Okay.
I was busy with kids, raising family and everything else, and I basically started singing, performing professionally when I was 45.
No kidding.
No kidding. So between the military and the jobs and trying to take care of the 5 kids,
right?
It turned into I have to work, period. I always knew I could sing, and I had some great vocal coaches and everything else out west. But that took precedent. Once the kids were out of the house, it was like, hey, it's time to go. It's the do-over.
Right.
Quintessential do-over. So, I went right after it. So, but it's been a lot of fun. As far as the show coming up, Sinatra to me is a style. Never really disappeared.
Never.
I was the black sheep during the 60s because I listened to Doc Severinsen and the NBC Orchestra. So,
Oh my gosh.
But so that was that didn't go over really well in the 60s, especially on the West Coast.
You weren't cool.
Yeah, I was one of the uncool guys, but that's all right. I survived. I made it.
Wow. Have you always had a relationship with music and entertaining?
Right. I was one of those fortunate or unfortunate children who went to a parochial school from kindergarten. So, you're in the choir from the time you're 5 years old, whether you want to be or not. So.
Right.
But they noticed that there was a little bit of music in there, so they followed up with it, and it's been good. I've enjoyed it.
So prior to being 45, you raised a family, you were in the military.
Correct.
And now your kids are grown, you're an empty nester, and you are just following your passion?
It's like I said, it's like a do-over. My second wife, God bless her, she brought 3 kids in a marriage, and I brought 5, so we had 8, and we're up to our, let me think about this for a second,
oh my goodness,
22nd or 23rd grandchild. So we're getting ready to start our own country and apply for aid. So that's
I would do that right away. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's my second wife basically heard me when we first got together. I was singing down by Myrtle Beach, down at the beach, and she goes, "Why are you doing this other stuff? You sing really great. You do Bobby Darrin, you do Dean, all these people." He says, "You need to do this." And so I started doing it on a part-time basis, and then it started to turn into too much business to where I never had any time for myself. I was working a daytime job, working 12 hours a day, and then you're out until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the evening doing private shows. So it gets to you, and I said, well, you know what? I can make the cut off. I can make the cut, and let's give it a shot and see what happens before I get too old.
Right. So the great thing about what you do is you just reinvent yourself, and you've started a whole new career. That's a pretty cool thing.
It's interesting for people my age. I think for a lot of the boomers, because everybody thinks they're on the downside, they're on the backside, and they want to relax a little bit and everything else. So when they see me on a stage, I'm pumped up.
Right.
I'm having a good time because this is something I wanted to do ever since I was a young kid.
You're reinvigorated.
Yeah.
And you get a reason to get up every morning, and it's there's a purpose, there's a cause.
Well,
it's a great way to live.
Yeah, we usually get up every afternoon. Musicians are.
Yeah. You guys are nocturnal, and all of a sudden, the sun hurts you, right? Like vampires.
Pretty close.
Well, talking about boomers, I also want to introduce Henry Masson. And Henry, I have a feeling this conversation today is going to wind up being a generational conversation, which is not a bad thing because we have a lot of information to pass on to the millennials, right? And
that's true.
And welcome and good morning.
Good morning.
Tell me about your orchestra, the North Carolina Revelers Orchestra, and a little bit about you.
Well, the NC Revelers is sort of my second act, if you will, because we moved here 12 years ago, And I'd run a successful big band in Atlanta for many, many years, more than I like to admit. And we played for some great things. We played for Jimmy Carter's Nobel Peace Prize celebration. We played for Ted Turner's birthday party once. We had some great events we played for. And a bunch of different conventions. The Atlanta Fox Theater's 75th anniversary party, which was a marathon. And it was a great time. I had a good band there. It's still going strong. And so we moved here to follow grandchildren. And so I thought I would just retire, maybe pick up a horn and play with somebody's band and just take life easy.
Yeah.
And the more I did that, the more I decided I wanted to run my own show. So I started another band.
Wow.
And that's how the NC Revelers came about. So I had the music, I had the equipment, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew the sort of players I was looking for. So here we are.
And you are a band leader, but you're also a trombone player?
This is correct. As a friend of mine once said, I have had a lifelong dispute with the trombone.
How's that going?
Well, so far it's winning.
It is?
Yes.
How many in your group? How many in the orchestra?
It's a 17-piece band,
Okay.
and then we carry 2 singers of our own when we do our own shows. So it's 19 people on stage.
But we imported this guy in for this event, huh?
Bill is the male singer. We're bringing our lady singer along with us, and she's
we
quite
need to mention her.
She's quite a story, and she's a story too.
Oh, is that right?
Oh,
And who is that?
Her name is Lauren Meehan. She was Miss New Hampshire for the year 2000, so she is a former Miss America contestant, and her talent was singing, and still is.
Okay.
Great singer, great personality, wonderful stage presence, and she's going to decorate the show.
Oh, yes. Definitely so.
You mean she's a lot prettier than Bill?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
We have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt a physical impossibility. 17 musicians, especially old musicians like me, can hide behind one pretty girl.
Right.
It's a fact.
I have nowhere to hide, though. So
That's true.
So
You're on your own.
The three of us are on the radio for a reason, but we can't have Lauren here. We'd have to have a camera, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Has music been a lifelong vocation for you?
An avocation.
Avocation.
I had a day job like everyone else.
Did you?
I was one of those faceless government employees who was here to help you.
But music was your passion always?
That's what I did.
Running through your blood?
I would leave work in a tux any number of days.
So this is a good story because you guys are doing this for the love of music, and it's a chance to recreate yourselves, and it keeps you young, doesn't it?
Well, I couldn't make a living at it, but it does definitely. I play almost as well as I used to, and I have a good time with it.
Right. Do you live here locally in North Carolina?
I live near Raleigh.
Near Raleigh.
I'm in Wake County.
Do you travel then quite a bit and do different events throughout the state and South Carolina?
We have played as far this way as Fort Bragg, and the other way we played at the Grove Park a few times.
Wow.
So it's all over the state.
Have you guys been you've been practicing this week? You've been
Yes,
getting ready?
we had a rehearsal last night.
So the acoustics at the Temple Theater, they're pretty good, aren't they?
They are good.
I think so.
I have played in there with another group at one time, so I know the theater.
Yeah, and a lot of people here in Moore County, the Temple Theater is a very short drive north of here, and lots of people go to many of the events, but there's still so many people who have moved here since the demographics have shifted here that have never seen the Temple Theater. Mm-hmm. And what an iconic place to play or to view a play or a musical. It's quite something to behold.
Well, the Temple was built as a vaudeville house, so it's built to have good acoustics.
Right.
Because in those days they didn't have good sound systems, so what was spoken on stage had to be heard the old-fashioned way.
Right. You guys, is this the first time you're working together?
No, we've done several things. I guess Henry and I have. He kind of touched base with me about 10 years ago.
10 years ago, right? He sang our very first show.
Oh, is that right?
Sure did.
Just getting the band together, and I guess he happened to see my website.
I did.
And I was doing Sinatra's rendition of Mac the Knife with Quincy Jones, and he goes, "Get an interesting voice. I'm gonna have to try and get a hold of him." So, and we've always thought about collaborating and doing something and everything else. But at that point, I was singing 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, not just Sinatra, but I was doing everything. And that was my income. So, I mean, that's what I was doing. So it made it hard. And I said, well, when we get the band together and everything else, we'll put something together in the future, and we'll definitely hook up. So it took us some time, but I've sung with the band several times, and they're very tight. They're really, really tight band.
Bobby Darrin was a favorite of mine, and Sinatra. You guys are going to touch on a lot of classics, aren't you, at this event Tuesday night?
Yeah, different styles. I love Bobby Darrin too. As a matter of fact, I can bring this up now. I shouldn't bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. It'll spoil the fun. We argued back and forth about ending the show, and I mean, I'm going to end the show with Sinatra, but I wanted to close on stage with The Curtain Falls. And it's such a great song.
Bobby Darrin's closer.
Bobby Darrin did. It's a great song, fantastic song. So I'm looking forward to that. And like I said, we're covering Dean Martin. For the younger kids out there, and for myself too, Michael Buble, which is, and he's kept a lot of the old standards alive too.
Michael Buble is a great song stylist, isn't he?
Yes. Well, and that's it. I mean, he's doing standards, but his arrangements, he's really done some great things with arrangements and changed things around.
Yeah.
And he's a good stage person on,
great persona.
So.
And that's what you're going to do on Tuesday night. You're going to woo the crowd that way, aren't you?
Well, I won't. I might not be able to move just as quickly as he does, but.
So that genre, you had Sinatra, you had Bennett, you had Darrin. Part of their mystique was not just their pipes, but their ability to communicate as they were singing, and they had a style and they had a pizzazz. Right. Tony Bennett, for one, was a great song stylist. Right. Still is. He's 90.
Oh, yeah. I've seen him several times, and it's just unbelievable.
I think.
Huh?
I think he's 91.
Didn't he just do a duet with Lady Gaga?
Yeah.
I mean, is he ever going to leave? I mean, he's timeless.
Well, with Tony, and you say this up, and God bless him, I hope it never happens, but, with Tony, if he's going to go on stage.
That's right.
So that's he's not going to change that. I don't think anybody would change that for Tony.
We're going to come back in the second set. We're talking about the Temple Theater's production of An Evening with Old Blue Eyes. It's a tribute to Frank Sinatra with Bill Stonehouse, with Henry Masson. It's going to be 7:30 this Tuesday evening. There will be VIP tickets available for people who want to call in to Al Mangum at 910-315-3099. Temple Theater is a great place to watch different types of productions, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you.
Not mellow. You will be my music. You will be my music. I can't wait any longer.
Welcome back to All Things Moore County, and that was Bill Stonehouse in the background, huh, Dorothy?
Yes, it was.
People can get a smattering or an idea of his vocal skills by just YouTubing him.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
The expression YouTubing somebody didn't even exist 15 years ago, did it?
It's crazy, isn't it?
And now we all know what that means.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Isn't that crazy? People can go on YouTube, they can go on different social media and listen to, they can pull up anything they want to hear.
Sure can.
It keeps things alive, which is not a bad thing.
No, it isn't. Well, I think Steve Perry, when he left Journey and stuff like that, I think Neil Schon and stuff like that found the guy off of YouTube that was singing Steve Perry.
Is that right?
He's with the band now.
We're talking about the evening coming up this Tuesday, an evening with Old Blue Eyes over at the Temple Theater, and sponsored by Remax Real Estate Services, and they've been a patron of the Temple Theater for quite a few years, a big supporter of the theater. Local theater it's a tough go. Peggy Taphorn is a very courageous lady. She is. She keeps reinventing herself, and what she's done with that theater over the years has been phenomenal. When it started, when she took over in the mid-2000s, early 2000s, things weren't so good, and she's been able to really bring it up to a different level, I think. There's so much to talk about. I grew up in Tenafly, New Jersey, and I went to school with Paul Anka's niece. Mm-hmm. And Paul Anka lived in northern New Jersey, as a lot of entertainers did in the 60s and the 70s. And we didn't know. I mean, I went to school with Jimmy Dean's daughter, Connie. Mm-hmm. He lived in Tenafly. And when he sang that song, Big Bad John, remember that song?
Oh, yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. So today, we look around and we don't know. Paul Sorvino lived there, Jimmy Dean, Jerry Vale.
I love Jerry.
Lived in Tenafly,
yeah.
Bergen County, and I guess it was like a bedroom community in New York City, and the music industry was right there, and we didn't know. But that whole era that you're go ahead.
Glenn Miller had a house in Tenafly.
I think you're right. He did.
Yeah.
And no one ever says that, gee, the Sahadi family had a house in Tenafly. No one ever thinks of us. I mean, but we had a lot of people living there. But that era is worth preserving, and it's worth, and the classics stand the test of time, don't they? Some of these numbers, they're just, kids are picking up on the art of a Sinatra.
Right, and I think it's so, like I said, it's so new to them that it's a different melody line. It's a different structure, and I think so that helps kids. And like I said, you got the young performers bringing it back now. So that's Buble brings it back. Yeah. Paul Anka, amazing guy.
Yeah.
I'm doing a sidebar here, but you brought up Paul Anka. I mean, he's an amazing arranger,
right?
And he did a lot of work for Sinatra. Definitely did that. But his album, which Henry and the NC Revelers play, they do a lot of the arrangements from Rock Swings, which came out several years back, where he took a bunch of rock songs and put them to big band arrangements. And it's a fantastic CD.
This was Sinatra or Anka?
No, this is Paul Anka. He put that through him and stuff like that. I mean, he actually took a song by Van Halen, Jump, and put it to a big orchestra. It's a great arrangement, it really is.
Last week we played Lionel Richie's tune, Hello, in Paul Anka's version on a show.
Did you really?
Sure did.
Mm-hmm. I have in my office, I have a lot of millennials who work in my office. Mm-hmm. And one of the running conversations we have all the time is I look back now and I think the music of the 60s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s was so much better than the stuff today. And now I sound like my father. And I do. I can't help it, but I just...
Well, there's a huge difference. Just say, for example, you mentioned Jerry Vale.
Yeah.
He's got a voice like a bell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bing, really rings.
Yeah.
Growing up in an Italian restaurant out in the West Coast, I was listening to Jerry Vale, Al Martino,
right,
Sergio Franchi. I mean, I was listening to all those voices from the past. And, most of the male voices out there right now, with the exception of maybe, Josh Groban and a couple other people, Buble, they lose a lot of that old style voices, and you turn to kind of screeching and singing or monotone, just a flat melody line, as opposed to going back to some of the old school teaching and stuff. So
Sinatra was a type of an artist that people, correct me if I'm wrong, they clamored to write for him. They would write songs specifically for him to sing.
True.
Because he had the ability to carry, his cadence was so unusual. I don't see that in a lot of vocalists today.
No, I mean, that's old school teaching. That's old school vocalist.
Yeah.
My vocal coaches were Primo Puccinelli and Sergio Sorianello, both old Italians, all bel canto style. It's all about pronunciation and being able to sing bel canto, like we talked about earlier, without the use of microphones and everything else, and actually projecting out. The style, like I say, is different. Sinatra had his beats were a little bit different, but he also had the pronunciation of each line,
Right.
the way it should have been.
Right.
So.
Every note was accounted for with a word too, or whatever.
One thing about
Henry?
Sinatra, you'll notice on a lot of his tunes, the first time through, he'll be very straight with the melody. You'll have the notes in the right place. You'll have the enunciation where you hear the lyric and understand the lyric. And then if he gets into the jazz end of things, he'll do it the second time around.
Right.
But the first time you hear the song.
Right.
That's important.
Right. Today also we have the advantage of having satellite radio. Doesn't Sinatra just have his own station?
Sure, I think so.
Isn't that
I'm pretty
Seriously
sure
Sinatra.
What is it called?
Seriously Sinatra.
And is that on XM radio?
Sirius XM, yeah.
Sirius XM. So if you have that service in your car, you can just pull up Seriously Sinatra and listen to it. That says more than anything that one person could have their own station.
I'll keep working at that. I don't.
Good luck.
So Bobby Darrin was also a very iconic singer, and a lot of people thought he was sort of just coming up right behind Sinatra and was going to fill his boots as well at the same time. And he kind of did, but wasn't around a whole long time to
No,
maintain
that's a sad piece. I mean, not just in singing the standards and some of the old. So you think about all the musicians now that we have today that they never achieve that full greatness and everything else. And one of my favorite, believe it or not, on the folk rock side was Jim Croce.
Loved him.
I mean, he made it to the
Jim
top,
Croce.
and
He was.
that's the way it went.
I was in college. I was a junior in college. It was 1974, I think.
1973.
1973. I was a sophomore in
1973.
college, and I remember I was walking from one class to another and heard the news. And in those days, people would play the vinyl albums, and everybody had the same albums. You had Jackson Browne.
Oh, sure.
You had Grateful Dead, Jim Croce,
Any of them. The Eagles.
the Eagles,
Sure.
Rod Stewart, even Rod. Oh my God, these guys! You're going back 40 years.
Right.
But Jim Croce was a great songwriter, wasn't he?
He would. I like to call him as a folk rock singer, which is pretty much where we could put him. Is he had the ability to be like Norman Rockwell. He could paint a picture in a song.
That's right.
Big Bad Leroy, Brown. I mean, there was a lot of painting going on with his lyrics.
Right.
So he was a fascinating individual.
Right. Henry.
Rod Stewart just had his 70th birthday last year.
I don't want to know that. I don't want to hear that.
And he hired
That's
the Glenn
terrible
Miller.
news.
He hired the Glenn Miller Orchestra to play for his birthday party.
Goodness. Dorothy, I was a freshman in college. I was going into the cafeteria to open up my mailbox to get some letters, because in those days all you had were letters.
Yeah.
And all I could hear in the background in the cafeteria was Maggie May. Now, you tell me, today you hear Maggie May on the radio, and the kids that listen to it love it.
Yeah.
And this is a cool song. 1972.
Who'd have thought?
Huh? 1972.
Yeah, I know.
And he's as strong as ever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at some of his the American Songbook.
Yeah.
Were three of his biggest selling albums, and just the amount of sales that he's getting off of doing the old standards from the American Songbook. Or for example, Nat King Cole. I mean, that was a huge album.
Yeah.
Huge album.
One of the undercurrents of this event that you'll see on Tuesday night at the Temple Theater is there will be an undercurrent of nostalgia as well, and that in itself will make this a very compelling show. We're going to come back in the third set talking about the event and Evening with Old Blue Eyes with Bill Stonehouse and the North Carolina Revelers Orchestra. We'll be right back.
And he keeps it, man, he keeps it way out of sight. when that shark bites with those teeth there. Ooh, the scarlet billows, they begin to spread. Fancy gloves, oh, as old Mackie there. So there's barely ever a trace of red. Ooh, on a sidewalk. Who's that sneaking round the corner? Could that someone perhaps a chance to meet Mac tonight? On a tugboat, yeah, down on the river going slow. There's a cement bag, it's drooping on down. That cement is there, just
his
there
version
for
of
the weight.
Mac the Knife, pretty good.
Yes, it is.
I don't know who I was listening to. I thought it maybe Bobby Darrin. Pretty close, huh?
Yeah.
Tuesday night, May 29th at 7:30 at the Temple Theater, an evening with Old Blue Eyes, and we're speaking. It's a tribute to Frank Sinatra, and it's a tribute to that era, featuring Bill Stonehouse as a vocalist in the North Carolina Revelers Orchestra. But Henry, there are some band members, and the singer you mentioned that is coming. You want to tell us a little bit about as well.
Our lady singer is Lauren Meehan, and she, as I mentioned earlier, she was Miss New Hampshire some time back.
Right.
Very, very outstanding stage presence. And it's a rather interesting story as to how she joined the band. Because I was living in Atlanta, and I have various friends around the country who lead bands. And one day I happened to be talking to a friend of mine who runs a band out of Boston. And I could tell he was very unhappy. So I said, Al, what's the problem? You sound like you lost your last friend. He said, it's worse than that. Our girl singer is moving to a little town in North Carolina. He had no idea that I was about to move to North Carolina. So I said, well, where is she moving? And he said, a little town called Cary. 10 miles from my new house.
Right.
I said, Al, tell her she's been traded for a first-round draft choice and a player to be named later.
Right.
She called me the next week,
Right.
and it was a year. I had to get moved and find my way around, meet some musicians around here.
Right.
But within a year, she was my very first band member.
Oh, boy. So that was serendipitous in a way.
Quite.
Right.
Very much so.
And so you guys have a good association, and you're going to continue to work together?
Oh, she's outstanding. She'll be there as long as she wants to be.
Yeah. I know I've mentioned that this event Tuesday night is being hosted by the Temple Theater, but it's also being sponsored by Remax Real Estate Services. And for those people in Apex and Sanford who are familiar with Remax, their broker and owner, Crystal Copas, has been a very strong supporter of the Temple Theater events over the years since I've known Peggy, since she's been coming on the show. And their support makes events like this possible. And they will, my guess is you will draw from the Cary-Raleigh area, the Moore County area. Sanford is sort of on the 50-yard line, which makes it a very enticing venue to come and see. And to see this event.
Certainly hope that the theater will draw a few just because it's such a great place to make music and have a show.
It really is. And there will be a couple of VIP tickets available for anybody who's listening who would like to call in. And they can speak directly to Al Mangum at 910-315-3099 for the event. Reserve seats are $20. The VIP tickets are $30. You can also visit the templeshows.com website to get additional information, or call them at 919-774-4155. One of the most rewarding attributes of doing a show like this would probably be for you to see an audience of different generations. Not just our generation.
Right.
Right. We don't want to look at ourselves.
And I think you do. I've seen a cross section of anytime I play down there, I get a cross section of pretty much 3 different generations. So it's and like I said, it's a lot newer to them. We grew up with it. It was always in the back of our mind. We might not have listened to it constantly, but it was always there. But it's very new for the younger kids. I mean, I've got my grandkids can sing Sinatra now and know most of the tunes. So
that's crazy. And you're talking about kids under the age of 15?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
There is, as baby boomers, we were always identified as the most self-absorbed generation, right? With the Beatles, and we owned it all. Mm-hmm. And now that we're where we are, it's no coincidence that there's this nostalgia move on, because such a large portion of the population represents a lot of the music that you'll be performing and singing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, well, think back. When did it come out? My goodness. Mid-'70s, 77, when they came out with the movie Grease.
Yeah.
Well, that was about the 50s kids that grew up, the poodle skirts and everything else, but that was nostalgia for that time frame. So
that's right. Yep. We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, an actor who is here performing at the Sandhills Community College with the Judson Theater Company. Well, he was in a couple of iconic TV shows in the 70s and 80s. Come to find out during our conversation, his father was one of the DJs on WABC radio in New York. You remember Cousin Brucey? Okay. Scott Muni. Anyway, his father was one of the hot DJs, and ABC was playing all the music of the 70s and the 60s at that time. It's amazing. We have so many people that come through Moore County with all these types of connections. The music industry is one where relationships go on from generation to generation, decade to decade. Still waters run deep. I mean, you probably have relationships that go back so far. Henry?
One thing you might find interesting, you mentioned Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga earlier.
Yeah.
The arranger, the guy who wrote the tunes, the musical treatment of the tunes for the orchestra. He is almost exactly Tony's age. He's 92 years old now.
Oh, my goodness.
He came out of retirement to do the first album and has subsequently done several others because he knew exactly what Tony wanted. Tony called him and said, you're the man I want to do these charts.
Wow.
And I think that's amazing to me that he was able to capture just what he wanted and make an arrangement that was a huge hit.
Right. You guys are in a unique position where you have a great perspective. We've mentioned Michael Buble, we've mentioned Lady Gaga, but there are some artists today that you probably have taken notice of that you think, help to carry on some of the traditions of the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Anyone in particular come to mind?
You know what? One that comes to mind is a local boy. And we should find out here pretty soon. It's Britton from Sanford. And he's on The Voice. I think he's one of the finalists.
Oh, yeah.
He's just turned 18, I think. And he's a pretty impressive. He's a pretty impressive individual. So I know there's a lot of people rooting up there around the Temple Theater for that young man.
Where is that in terms of the final round? How close are they to?
I don't really pay that much attention to. I'm still waiting for the senior version of The Voice.
Yeah.
So the 60-plus version. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But I think he's in the final 3 or something like that. But yeah.
They had the semifinal or the program last night. I taped it and watched his segment, and he was very impressive.
Mm-hmm. You recruit him pretty soon?
If he's ready to sing with us, we'll talk.
Is that right?
I think he's performed at the Temple. I think he's done some stuff down there. And I heard that he did a song last night that was his original song, which is interesting for a kid that age to really put something out. But you think about it, you think about American Idol, you think about The Voice and stuff like that. Count how many people have gotten in the final rounds from North Carolina. Quite a bit.
Yeah, you're right.
Quite a bit.
That's right.
So that's amazing.
Kelly Pickler was one from way back. There were a couple I remember.
Yeah.
But I think that Tuesday night should be an outstanding evening of nostalgia and also of rediscovering some classics, and hopefully getting a lot of people to come to the Temple Theater who might not have ever been. This is a great event, and it crosses generational lines. May 29th, this Tuesday at 7:30. How long will the show go on for?
It's about 2 hours. It'll be about a 2-hour show.
Yeah, and people there are so many cute restaurants in downtown Sanford. They can come in town a little early, grab a bite to eat, come see the show. Reserved seats are $20 and VIP tickets are $30. You can call the Temple Shows. You can visit their website, templeshows.com, to get more ticket information. And an evening with old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra, Michael Buble, Bobby Darrin, Tony Bennett. Who am I missing? What other...
no, you're looking at Nat King Cole, so there's going to be a lot of different stuff.
Our lady singer is a big fan of Linda Eder, who came up with
She's great.
Ed McMahon's Star Search program. She came up that way.
Linda Eder, do you know... Okay, now you're going to start a whole another conversation. Do you remember the singer Jane Oliver?
Just the name. I'm not familiar with
the word. She was a cross between Edith Piaf and Barbra Streisand.
Oh, yeah.
She came up in the 70s and early 80s, kind of like a poor man's Barbra Streisand. We actually had her here on the show.
Really?
Linda Eder credited Jane Oliver. Jane Oliver was best known for her Academy Award-nominated song with Johnny Mathis. They sang the theme song from the movie with Alan Alda. I can't believe I remember all this. Alan Alda and Ellen Burstyn, same time next year. Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
Sure.
So that theme song, The Last Time I Felt Like This, was Jane Oliver and Johnny Mathis.
Well, Lauren has always been inspired by Linda Eder and has even attended some master classes with her.
How cool that is, yeah.
And one of the tunes she's going to be doing solo on this show is one of Linda's tunes.
Oh, she's got a great voice, a powerful voice. I mean, it's very good.
Well, look forward to seeing it on Tuesday night, an evening with old Blue Eyes at the Temple Theater, sponsored by Remax Real Estate Services. Guys, it was great for you to come in and talk to us.
Oh, thank you. I had a great time.
Yeah, and you guys, you were great. I appreciate your time. Best of luck Tuesday night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dorothy, and we'll see you next week. This is All Things Moore County.
At times you have a very unladylike way of running out. You're on this date with me, and the pickings have been lush. And yet before this evening is over, you might give me the brush. You might forget your manners. You might refuse to stay. And so the best that I can do is pray. Be a lady tonight. Luck be a lady.